The Hues, Part 3. Other parts down below. I just fell into survival mode. What do I need to exist through my day? How can I make progress on all the necessary pieces? My relationship with H became more non-existent, and I didn't even really know what was happening. I stopped talking to him about my stress and problems with work, because my mother's words were in my head, and I projected my own negativity about not being home onto H mostly. He was quietly going about life, but there were times I could tell he was stressed, unhappy, and I didn't know what to say. I wasn't spending time on extra stuff, but my regular contractual obligations were suddenly so much more demanding, and I didn't know what to do about it. I've always kind of subscribed to an if you're not going to change something, don't complain type mentality. I saw no option to change anything in my current situation, so I didn't talk to H. But I did talk to OM. He had been at the school during our successful years and saw the rapid disintegration of all that I'd worked on. He was going through his own issues with GF, and that was something that also brought us together as we worked to help her face her problem. I didn't know we were so emotionally connected because I had as much interaction and even more personal conversation from other students, former students. It just crept up on me. After D-Day number 1, H and I read Not Just Friends, and I really recognized what I had done. Shutting down opportunities for conversation, emotional support from H and giving it instead from OM. H has admitted to being passive-aggressive in some of his dealings with me, and that was another difficult factor for us. I wanted to know he'd miss me when I was going to be gone, and he would reply with, "I'll be too busy working on my own stuff." After a series of evenings where I was gone last winter, H commented that things are easier without you around, because our son was acting out, wanting attention. That really just shut down the last of me. I didn't know how to change my work situation. I just had to get through those projects I was obligated to, and I believed he really felt that to be true. So, I essentially removed myself the rest of the way. The hardest part is hearing after the fact that he really wanted me around more, was thinking about me and missing me, but couldn't say that because he was frustrated in the moment. Even though I continued the affair with OM after a 5-week NC period, I have genuinely been evaluating H's and my past relationship as part of our false R over the last 4 months. I see so much more where our communication and attention to each other as people and making time for us as a couple ate away at our bond. I know why I put those communication walls up between us. I hate myself for what I've done to us, and I hate the affair and all my choices over the last 6 months. But I am so much better equipped to recognize and prevent this breakdown from happening again. I am much more cognizant of relationship dynamics, boundaries, walls and windows as it were. I know not only do I love H, but I genuinely like him as a person, and just stopped interacting with that person. It's absolute crap that this awareness may have come too late after I inflicted all this pain. I did lie at D-Day number 1 and then resumed the affair after 5 weeks of NC after OM showed up at my office. My intention was for honest R, but I didn't maintain that NC, and I fell back into old habits after seeing him. I trickled truth last week from Saturday to Wednesday, with full disclosure on Thursday. There is no version and no excuse other than panic and a habit of lying at that point. When you make a mental block that my husband could never possibly forgive X, it's incredibly hard to convince yourself that honesty is really the only hope you have. In the case of my last lie, I knew he knew the answer to the question. I could tell by the way he asked. But I lied before my brain could even kick in to stop me. Like an exaggerated fight or flight reflex, and lies were my flight. It's inexcusable. I just have to hope it's not unforgivable. I am attempting to overcome this through individual counseling, communication, transparency, and better support systems. When OM appeared before, I had read NJF and paid attention to how the year began, and was maintaining better boundaries that way, but was also not talking to anyone in my life really about the affair. And the people I was talking to, therapist, H, one other friend, I was not giving the whole truth to, just maintaining what I had admitted on D-Day number 1. So, OM appears, is distraught, my instinct to comfort and latent emotional connection are all still huge factors. I won't talk to anyone because I am already on the path of dishonesty regarding the situation. I slippery slope myself with rationalization. I'll just drive by his work and see if he's okay. I'll just give him something to read so he's not bored, etc. All the while I was just feeding my need to be necessary to someone. I know I am much stronger and different after this final exposure and being honest about all that transpired. There is nothing for me to cling to, because I know H can and will walk away at any time and is in the process of doing so. I am communicating much differently and with a wider variety of people and have already faced an attempt from OM at breaking NC and contacted my BH immediately. In short, I am attempting to make sure that I have no outs, no hidden thoughts, emotion, or activities. Resuming the affair was a hugely wrong and hurtful choice, but I can look back at it and see how I put myself into, maintained a vulnerable position regarding OM. I am doing everything possible to make sure that is not the case now. Well, it's been a productive few days. My 99 appointment Friday went well. I laid everything out to the counselor, and I feel more positive about going forward with that. H sat in and just listened. I was exceptionally grateful for his presence. I can see how my word usage makes it seem like I am trying to minimize. I don't feel that I am, but when I use the stronger phrases and negative descriptors that I think inside, then it comes across as dramatic or insincere. Trying to find a way to accurately convey myself is a challenge right now. I hope it improves, as one of my therapy assignments is journaling. I am 2 weeks into NC, and as hard as the fallout from my affair and continued lying has been, there's an odd sense of relief and hope mixed in. H and I have communicated more honestly than we have in quite some time, especially over the last week or so. I am trying to be very zen with each day, enjoying the positive moments with H and our son, focused on really trying to know myself as I am, and not trying to borrow stress from the future or past. I am finding myself astonished each day with how little foresight I had in the affair. Not only was I not thinking about repercussions, damage, pain for everyone involved, but I was not thinking about OM's motivations, agenda with me pre-affair and on. We talked last night about interactions with people, and I really have never considered that someone would have an agenda in how they interact with me. I ascribe my own thoughts, motivations to people I interact with, especially if I feel I know them. I'm not sure how I got this far in life without recognizing such a basic concept. I don't want to become jaded, cynical, but I feel really stupid for not acknowledging something like this and being more wary. It's going to be hard to find a balance there. I find myself uneasy with basic interactions with colleagues, students now, and I am also uncertain as to my own motivations, agenda. I doubt and question everything except my interactions with my husband and son. Those feel more connected and real than anything in the world around me. Maybe because I feel truly safe with both of them, and the honesty with which H and I are sharing right now is a huge factor in that. I always thought I was smart and intuitive where people were concerned. When I began therapy in July, my counselor asked me to mention some of my strengths, and that and compassion were two that popped in my head. Now I am facing that likely neither of those is true, nor at least, compassion for my husband is something I completely disregarded during the affair in pursuit of my own selfish wants. I am not trying to minimize my choices in pursuing the affair and continuing it, but I can see now how my ignorance in considering motivations added to my emotional vulnerability and false sense of shared condition with OM, something for me to continue to evaluate. Another issue on my mind is better understanding my selfishness and its manifestation. I am struggling with the feeling of responsibility, obligation I had toward OM and my students, job in general. It was pointed out in my thread earlier that my feelings like that, and giving in those circumstances, are really the epitome of selfishness because I'm doing for the ego boost, etc. How can I ever know the degree of truth in that? I'm sure Mother Teresa felt good helping people. I'm not equating myself to her in any way, but whatever, just an example of a well-known giving person. And clearly, with OM, there's a huge difference between feeling responsible for his life circumstance after D-Day number 1 and sleeping with him. I definitely had some clearly selfish motivations as the affair progressed. But that sense of obligation was a big slippery slope for me after he broke NC. My NC effort was definitely not strong enough back then. Physically and communication-wise I had been holding on well, but I had to interact with people who knew him, but not about the affair, and asked about him regularly, especially when school resumed and he wasn't working with me again. And my mental NC was not great, especially when H would want to discuss my feelings for OM as an antenna, and how could I know I wouldn't still be in love and missing him in 20 years. I'm rambling at this point, just spilling out some thoughts and realizations from the last few days. Thanks for reading and for any thoughts you have to share. Both H and I are amazed at the time and thought relative strangers are willing to put into our lives. This whole experience was so isolating for us, especially as we attempted to navigate our first false R. We read a book and then tried to continue on, but both of us made a lot of mistakes and didn't really understand the importance of many things. It is a different road now, for sure, and I don't know the destination. I am willing and able to do whatever is best for my own personal recovery from this affair and what works for my husband and son, whether that means leaving education entirely, leaving theater, music entirely, or finding a new sense of balance and boundaries within either or both of those situations. H and I have discussed that I have a lot of changes to make, but that it is not practical or a model for future success if I attempt to become completely self-sacrificing. All we would do is reverse positions, essentially, in how our marriage has been operating, and that is likely to breed similar issues. My sister, who recently went through a divorce, asked me shortly after D-Day number 2 what I would be able and willing to do to maintain a steady relationship with my son. And I've really thought a lot about what the future may hold when H and I do finalize our divorce. I am of the mindset that I will go wherever they go to maintain frequent visitation, regardless of the job opportunities available to me. Basically, I had to really think about what I will value most in the future, and my job won't be there to hold my hand when I'm 70. My job won't walk across a high school graduation stage. My son will, and I want that more than any job satisfaction. Would it be nice to be able to have a job that is not just work? Of course, but my dedication to that has definitely decreased as I've been seriously looking at possible futures. I am a master at compartmentalize. Partly, I think, because of my career field. It was really deeply ingrained into me in college that if I was going to be successful in the arts, I had to be able to put everything else out of my mind and perform in any given circumstance. So, I got really good at that. You know what they say, the show must go on. I honed that skill for years, putting everything aside as needed and focusing only on one thing at a time to enable me to get through whatever I was facing. But obviously, I carried that into all aspects of my life, and that was a huge mistake. So finally, I reached a point where it couldn't compartmentalize, where all the things I'd been diligently keeping apart crashed together, and I have to try to assimilate what all these different pieces say about me. Who I am, and who I can be. It's a lot of stuff to look at and sort through, but any progress is good at this point. So last night was a rough one for us. I had to be at school late working on lights for my upcoming concert. H generously offered to stay and help me. We worked well together for several hours and then had a discussion as to a past encounter I'd had with OM in that space. I gave him the details and answered questions, and we went home for the night after picking up our son. Later, H got really angry about the situation and said he wants me staying back outside the home again. I never officially moved back. H would just let me stay sometimes if we were talking late and spending time together. It's hard for me to know what the best way to handle situations like that is. H has shown in the past a very detail-oriented interest in the affair, and I want him to have all the information he feels that he needs. He has also wanted me to physically reenact events with him, and I have always agreed. Last night, a large part of his anger was the way that I talked with him about the details, very dry and factual. I had taken a meds before starting work, because I thought the environment and situation would lead to anxiety for me. I am really trying right now to be calm both with our son and with H. I want to talk to him without adding any of my own emotional drama to the conversation. He says that he feels I am robotic and insincere. I also think it is partially a defense mechanism for me. I hate the things I've done and how they hurt H and make me feel about myself. So, relating them as factually as possible probably separates me from that pain and loathing a bit, or allows me to get through the conversation and think about it later. I ordered the book Surviving the Affair to read, and it came in yesterday. H saw it and tore it in half. I am still reading it, just in pieces. I've also been reading the 5 Love Languages book when I have time on my own. I have another IC appointment tomorrow and started my journal for that Monday. Other actions I've been taking. I email H my schedule every morning, even if he says he doesn't care. I text him any changes. I put a keylogger on my work computer this morning, and hopefully H will come over and change the password to something only he knows at some point. I will be installing the same program on my laptop at home. I'm researching spyware that doesn't require jailbreak for my phone and trying to pursue every transparency option I can think of. I am still prioritizing H and our son at home, helping do my part of the household duties, even when I am not staying there, and keeping outside rehearsals, commitments to a bare minimum. Today a colleague emailed me that he had heard about our relationship issues through the grapevine. I'm sure at this point most of my colleagues have heard something. I don't know about my students. None of them have commented to me, and their classroom behavior has been the same. Next week are finals, so we just need to survive until then, and can have a break from work. Overall, I am holding pretty steady. I am trying to respect H's need for space, and still try to show support and caring as he goes through this train wreck I caused. It hits me in waves. My compartments are good while I am busy at school or focused on my son, but time on my own is really hard to get through. I really don't want to get bogged down in excessive self-loathing, instead of working on the changes I want to make in myself, but it's hard to not just sit and mentally abuse myself and my choices. But I don't feel that helps me progress, really. Maybe it's a necessary internalization of my guilt for now, especially as every day I am more and more sickened by what I did and put my family through. IDK. Still rambling, I guess. Oh, I also started looking for new jobs in the city I assume my BH is planning to relocate to. Yesterday was a tough day for me. For whatever reason, I faced a lot of depression and emotion. I've been doing fairly well just trying to be positive each day, to focus on the changes that I'm making in myself, but yesterday that just didn't stick. The phrase that kept circling around in my head was it will never matter what I do because of what I've done. I don't think I really believe that deep down, but yesterday was just a defeated feeling day for me. I cried more than I have for over a week and just felt so low. I don't want to be that around my family. I want to be strong and supportive for H, and level and happy with my son. It's very important to me to be consistent in my behavior and my desire to put H first, so it really felt like a setback yesterday to have to fight my own personal depression about what I've done, instead of giving my energy to helping him fight his. H was very kind yesterday, holding my hands, giving me time to nap, and when I started to put up the Christmas tree, even though I was in an incredibly negative place, he helped out, and by the end of it, I was feeling a little better. It was wonderful to watch my son help with some of the ornaments and his little face smile in the glow of the lights. It's something I am so incredibly grateful I got to experience, and I think that helped me get back to a healthier mindset of appreciating and showing my love for the little things each day and not getting bogged down in a past I can't change but can learn and grow from. I've been reading Surviving the Affair, continuing my IC, and working on my journaling and thought clarification. The book seems deceptively simple. I know that it's not, but my type of personality likes having definite structure as I look at my behavior, choices, and attitudes and the effects of those. Have any of you found it useful in your experiences? My work experience has not really changed. I know that the bulk of the people I interact with must know, if not all the details, certainly the big picture. However, my students have continued to be consistent in their behavior, and the only colleagues that have approached me have been caring in their comments. It's definitely more than I could have ever hoped in our small environment. I'm sure the gossip behind my back is fairly vicious, but there is nothing I can do about that. I am still waiting for some sort of pull, craving for contact with OM to happen. I am really happy that it hasn't, and hope that means I am on my way to having a much more logical, realistic view of what happened between us, and that the false emotions that I was listening to before can't impact me in the same way. I was able to help H find the last address he was missing for my NC letters, and I felt good about that, and relieved that my desire to completely end those toxic friendships would be clearly stated and, I hope, respected by the recipients. I think NC with those toxic friends has the potential to be more difficult for me over time than with OM. Part of my brain still wants to accept responsibility for their choices in that situation, that I put them into an impossible place, etc., etc. I just need to let that kind of thinking go. I am responsible for me. I am responsible for my son until he is older. Every other person I interact with is perfectly capable of using their own intelligence, values, and feelings to decide their own course of action. I may have some influence on that, but I do not choose for them. We are 3 weeks past D-Day 2. I still feel substantially different than the first time, but I am wary of trusting that feeling. But it is nice to feel more grounded, nonetheless. I am on guard against complacency and a false sense of security with myself and continue to make stronger barriers between myself and anything that could lead to the same slipping from before. Every day is another day to improve. My affair details in my post were false because I had not been honest with H about the extent of the affair. But the questions I asked, and assistance, viewpoints I sought were legitimate. I understand how my lies would really hurt the largely BS readership here. I understand how that could trigger their own pain about being lied to in their current or former relationships. But I was simply maintaining my story, not lying to manipulate others' view of me, and hoping that I could find some real solutions to a healthier relationship with my husband. I have a son to think about. I have a future with him. I'm not going to do something stupid to myself over my horrific past choices and rob him of the chance to have a mother who recovers herself from this. So, I choose action, positive thinking, and choices to help me on my path to change. I have been consistently reminded that as a liar, my words have no value. So, it's really interesting to observe that somehow, I still manage to not be saying the right things in some people's estimation, considering that all I say is worthless anyway. H and I talked last night about me not hating or being angry at OM. He astutely pointed out that I am still in a position where I am trying to take full blame for the affair. It's hard for me to look at the choices that I've made and attempt to lay even partial blame somewhere else. That feels like copping out or trying to minimize the heinousness of my own choices. Also, I continue to feel like I am asked questions about my feelings in the past and then they are interpreted as my feelings in the present. I can't say that I hate OM right now. What I am trying to achieve is no feeling for him at all. He doesn't deserve the energy and thought it would take for me to actively hate him. That energy and thought I want to devote to my family and myself as we try to heal from this in any way possible. Past tense, during the affair, I believed I loved him, and he told me he loved me. Present tense, after the affair, I believe I felt emotional attachment, infatuation, lust, but did not feel real love, and how I have come to understand and define love. He did not love me. Neither of us had the other's best interest in mind. Both of us were taking from the relationship what we wanted. I don't feel I am playing a game of attrition with H. I had to look up the meaning of that word. I am making necessary changes in my life and who I am as a person to go forward from this as a healthier individual and better partner. When he wants to talk, we talk. If he asks me to leave him alone, I respect that. Do I want him to recognize the changes I'm making? Of course. Am I haranguing him and constantly trying to point out those changes? I don't think so. I am just trying to live each day around my son and as the best person I can be right now. ETA, if OM showed up again and deliberately broke NC after my written request to him and his family, I would be incredibly angry. But as it stands, although I am upset, he did that the first time. I was the one who then allowed that contact to derail me in what I was trying to accomplish in my marriage. So, I will always have far more anger, hatred for my own failing and choice in that area than I could ever maintain for him. I did feel like I loved both my husband and OM during the affair, but I know after that it wasn't real love for OM. I don't think I am truly polyamorous, or I would have felt it for more people over the course of my life. I felt strong emotion for both individuals because they were each meeting emotional needs of mine. I was cake eating, instead of giving my husband the opportunity to meet all my needs as I should have. I would never have even been in a position to consider polyamory if I hadn't allowed OM in emotionally. So, it was a delusion, as I was seeking answers about a situation I created through poor boundaries and communication with H. I allowed a vulnerability to foster, and OM was in position to take advantage of that. When I found out what had happened that afternoon and asked OM not to return that day, he seemed genuinely surprised. Sorry for disrupting that. He claimed he noticed some extra items in the spare room, but thought it was an art setup of H's, not a romantic setup. I don't know what's true. My impression from that time is that he was sincere in that and it was not deliberate. Certainly, OM said all the right things to me to not make me feel like he viewed me as a piece of meat only. So, in a way, I have to sort through all those past interactions and decide what was true and what was lies. I assume that is a position most BSs find themselves in, instead of WS. I don't think I have said or done anything here that is defending OM. If I have, I would really love to have that pointed clearly out to me so I can see it and adjust my thinking. I don't think he deserves defending at all. But I am trying to answer questions that I am asked honestly, with my viewpoints from when I was in the affair, and then also look at them from outside the affair to try to evaluate what is true. Obviously, most of the truth that I am finding is coming from time and better perspective from those events, and not what I thought while they were happening. H and I talked last night about his anger towards OM for disrespecting him, and the way he treated me. That was hard for me to hear and really consider. Also, knowing that H's pain is compounded because of pain he feels on my behalf is awful. I feel the hurt and guilt of what OM and I did to H, but I haven't yet really processed what was done to me. It ties into the post I made a few days ago about really understanding someone else's motivations. I'm not very good at that yet, and it may seem very clear to people who read about it on the internet, but having lived through it, there are a lot of conflicting experiences that I have to sort through. I very clearly understand the difference in love shown to me by my husband through this ordeal versus OM. There is no comparison when you have hurt someone beyond all level of understanding, and they still hold your hand when you are upset or hold your hair when you are throwing up from the stress, and show up to support you at IC, work events, and so many other things H has done for me in the last few weeks. OM could never demonstrate that kind of true caring and thought. I don't deserve an ounce of it, but it really shows me the depth of H's love and compounds the terrible betrayal that I committed. I spend every day trying to show my love to H in return, to communicate my gratitude, and to be a person who values and lives that kind of true, deep love. Husband responds, from my perspective, he did love her, or whatever passes for love in affair mode, whatever that means, at least for a time. I think he felt love before the affair, when she was in NYC, and up until they engaged in the PIA in October. When he came to her office in early Sept, and broke NC, I think he was legitimately distraught over the way they ended. At least that's what I think based off her story, how he looked, how he acted. It could also be that he just felt alone. OM's ex-GF was in Florida. I think they were two peas in a pod, and their tryst didn't end the way either of them wanted it to. That's why they resumed the PA, kept the friendship, and ended it to what appears to be mutual satisfaction, on their terms as they discussed, with my WW fully intending on staying BFF. WW and OM are both examples of pure and total selfishness and are probably more alike than I care to face. She only got back to working on me when they were done. Also, from my perspective, once they started having full bonding, something changed. I mean, where could they go from there? That was the ultimate pinnacle for him. There was never going to be nights in Venice. He was never going to stand by her side as she gave birth to his son. They were never going to be able to hold hands in public. Mailing a married woman, teacher, was pretty much the plateau for him. OM was clearly not having his love needs met by OP and was courting his ex-GF again while they were in PA. He had somehow kept his ex-GF on the line and knew she would be moving back to Kansas. I don't know, maybe he just wanted a little trim from her too and he doesn't love her either. Honestly, the way wife describes her encounters with OM, it appears that he learned how to treat a woman in bed from watching porn, as an object and not someone to be cherished. It's foreign to me that she would accept his advances, the way he initiated, the way he treated her. She didn't care. In her quest for approval, anything was okay. I may have not gotten the truth from her. For all I know, it was the essence of nirvana when they held each other. But I'm going to guess it was pretty much tawdry quickies with the exception of the romantic night at toxic student number 2's house. That even sounded nasty to me. Cold, crappy apartment, sleeping on an air mattress with 2 students in the next room. Magical. I don't exactly want to defend her, but I feel like I should point out what I think are facts. I believe she's reevaluating his motives. I think she is spending more time on herself, which is the right thing to do. I'll admit a part of me wishes that OM's heart is shattered right now. His true love is not his and never will be, but I don't think that's how he feels now. Maybe there was a point where it was, but after tasting the forbidden fruit the thrill likely departed. He commented to his ex-GF that slept with OP could have been better. Who knows if that was true? OM's ex-GF astutely stated he may have just been saying that to spare her feelings. But if he's a taker, doing what he wants, how could it be better? If he leaves no room for his partner to give. Stupid stuff to contemplate, really. I don't know why we BH are so obsessed with the OM. I guess on a primal biological level they're a threat to be assessed unto infinity, a threat that can never be fully evaluated. OP responds, okay, so here's my thought dump for the day. We had a decent weekend together at home. H is struggling right now with getting distracted by something enjoyable and then feeling the weight of the affair crash back down on him when the distraction is finished. He saw a movie with friends Friday night and came home really hurt and angry. I just tried to talk with him and be there in whatever way he would let me. I've been fighting my own depression about the affair, and particularly feelings of loneliness, isolation. I can recognize that most of that is self-inflicted. I have some friends in my family who are trying to support me, but in no way condone what I did, but I can't bring myself to actually talk to them much. They all live several hours away, so the only real contact would be by phone. There is no one local for me to talk with other than H and my therapist. I find myself making excuses. They're busy, they have their own holiday, family stuff going on. I don't want to burden them with my crappy emotions and stress. So instead, it just piles up inside me and I try to portion it out a bit at a time. Said it was rough for me like that, and then Sunday morning was a bit of a continuation. Little things, like our cat puking around the house, or my toddler headbutting me so hard I have a black eye 3 days later become totally overwhelming and I'm just having a hard time functioning through it on certain days. But there are bright spots too. We spent time watching a movie together and napped on the couch. H was enjoying a new video game, and I liked watching him play and helping figure out some of the puzzles. It seems like every day I remember another piece of the past and what OM really knew about the situation before he kissed me the first time. I had told him he had concerns about our friendship about a month before OM kissed me. I was shocked and surprised that H had voiced that, felt that I had never even considered OM in that way, and when OM asked me what was up, I filled him in. He laughed and said that was ridiculous, that he certainly didn't think of me that way, and I felt mad that he would laugh at H's concern and something that had upset both H and I, but relieved and safe at the same time that we were just friends and he agreed with me that H's fears were unfounded, I guess, for lack of a better term. I can't believe it never occurred to me to doubt his word or sincerity in that situation. Every day I feel stupider and stupider. I don't know how I could have not recognized OM's motivations, actions as being what they were. H says I am either incredibly stupid and naive, or incredibly manipulative and calculating. I know the second is not true as a general characteristic before and outside of the affair, but I don't want the first to be true either. It's so humiliating. I don't actually have much relationship experience. I dated a HS friend after graduation for a few months, but had no real experience with him, and had one college BF for a couple of years before H, and that's it. The college BF was not a good relationship in hindsight. There was lots of emotional abuse disguised as teasing. Comments like if I'd known how ugly you were when you were younger, I never would have dated you because you're bad for the gene pool. There was always a sense of instability there too, even though we spent every night together for almost 2 years. He never wanted to plan anything long-term or talk about living together because I could break up with you tomorrow. So, I spent that entire relationship feeling like I had to please him, earn his love each day, I guess, in some weird way. Physically, there was some definite dominance patterns, and I'm not sure how that is imprinted on my overall physically, given that he was my first experience. I just have never felt really confident about myself in any situation, I guess. I'm really good at hiding it, but it's there. And I think those esteem issues are a big part of my pattern of behavior with OM giving him whatever he wanted, when he wanted. I am 36 years old. Many people would say that I am professionally accomplished, attractive, and intelligent. And all I ever really feel is that I don't know how or if I can live up to my potential, that my professional accomplishments are a smokescreen to hide my overall inexperience, lack of knowledge, and that I skate by on enthusiasm instead of skill. Physically, I waffle on my feelings about appearance. Even if I feel like I look good on a certain day or in a certain outfit, often I think it is a trick, I guess, that it hides my inherent flaws, rather than accenting my positive characteristics. Something more for my IC sessions, I guess. But if I have felt this way my whole life, how do you change that pattern? I can change what criteria I use for self-definition, work versus family for example, but I don't have any clue how to change it so that my own feelings about me are what gives me my identity, rather than an external source. It's really hard. H and I worked more on our divorce papers last night. It's really upsetting to me, but I am trying to not let that show, with relative degrees of success. He genuinely wants to know why I want to be married, what it is that I think that represents, other than tax breaks, etc. I'm having a hard time clearly communicating my feelings to him on the subject. My past actions have shown to H that I did not value that commitment, but how does one explain that I do value it now? Surely this is something that every WS faces. If they desire or I know we can D and still have a relationship. If he chooses, those are not mutually exclusive things. But I know I want to be married to H, not just a girlfriend. I know we need to redefine what a marriage means to us, especially since we are not religious, so that definition is not applicable, particularly. I need a lot more thought, clarification on my desire to maintain that bond before I can really express my true feelings to H in a worthwhile manner. My comment, I will try to fit the ending into part 4. Do you believe they can work this out or it's over? comment down, sub to catch the latest video, and see you in the ending.